All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Jim Schultens, a systems engineer here at Verify, and I'll be your host for today's session. Today, we're joined by the one and only Matt Sykes, otherwise known as Mr. Dashboard. And you'll probably see why a little bit later. How you doing today, Matt?
Good, Jim. Thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, no problem. All right. For today's session, we're going to go take a look at some cube data and how you can best utilize that data on reports and dashboards. Please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them at any time. Check out the webinars page at verify.com for all our past and upcoming sessions. You can also find these videos on our YouTube channel. That's easier for you. All right. For our agenda today, we'll start off with a quick overview of what Verify can do for you, and we'll jump into a live demo where Matt will dissect that cube data. We'll pause for some Q&A during the demo. If you do have any questions, make sure to ask them in the chat. And then after Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. All right. Quick overview of Verify. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco Call Manager, Contact Center Express, Cube iOS, WebEx calling, Zoom phone, and MS Teams collaboration. Deployed either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution, we provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets. CUCM management modules like remote phone control, change management, and dial plan management are also available. If you have questions on any of our features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager. One more thing before we kick things off. For an additional fee, Verify does offer an enhanced consulting service to our customers. Verify's SE team engages with you on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Verify SE to do the heavy lifting, giving you a stress-free, hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager, and we'd be glad to speak to you more in depth about the pricing in terms of service for our enhanced consulting service or ECS. All right, let's get into the wild. I'm going to hand things off to Matt. Please remember to type any questions into the chat, and we'll address those at the end of his presentation.
All right, welcome everybody, everyone. Matt Sykes with Verify here once again. Thank you, Jim. So what we're looking at here, and I've got a lot to kind of cover here in this short time frame, but I think everyone should be able to handle this pretty easily. Now today we're talking about Cube iOS data. Now, chances are, if you're entertaining Cube iOS data in Verify, you probably already have a call manager tied to Verify as well, or maybe even another platform. So hopefully the interface isn't foreign to you. But I'll kind of give a very kind of general overview walkthrough of kind of the Cube data here and what your next steps should be once you have your cubes tied to Verify and delivering data. So first thing I'm going to do here, and I'm going to break it up into three kind of sections for this presentation. We're going to go with administrative tasks or needs that I feel. Then we'll slide into call analytics, and then we'll wrap it up with some dashboard widgets as well. So first, I want to start out with the admin kind of functionality. So definitely within the analytics module here, which I'm defaulted into, which most people normally are within the interface, I've toggled over to my Cube instance or my Cube platform. Now within here, certainly we can click on the data summary clipboard icon here in the upper right to see how much data is available in the SQL databases for this node. Now this being a Cube cluster, but this is old lab data, so pay no attention to the time frame there. At least there's some data for me to play with in there. But first things first, what I want you to do, and we will be coming back here to vet some data in a few moments. But first things first, I want to cover some administrative tasks. Now, the Cube routers are set up with jobs and provisions, and I'll save us from going through that configuration KB right now. But the routers are supposed to be delivering data to Verify roughly every 55, 60 minutes or so, based off our recommended documentation. So one thing I want to kind of talk about is what if the routers are not sending us data? Now that certainly happens out in the field, periodically, where maybe there is some type of network updates or some security updates that can sever that hourly connection from the routers over to the Verify instance for for file delivery. So what I would recommend doing is go into the platforms. Underneath platforms, let's go into Cube iOS. Now, we're already receiving data from the routers. That's good and all, but now we want to make sure we kind of safeguard ourselves a little bit and turn on what's called monitoring, so that if Verify is no longer receiving data files from the router, we want to trigger email alerts to make you aware of that. So underneath the Cube cluster in Verify, underneath the CDR processing, the secondary sub tab here, will be all the processing configurations that you've probably already undertaken and polished out for the processing and data retentions. So the data retentions out of the box are going to be set to keep forever. You may want to have a realistic threshold on that, maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months, but certainly right out of the box, it will be set to keep forever. So we don't want drives to fill up. So you probably don't need years and years worth of Cube traffic to report on. So certainly set that to something that's comfortable for the environment. Again, whether that's 6 months or 12 months, but definitely something that's not keep forever. Okay, to cover that piece. But lastly, secondarily, on this page, I want to talk about this. So the monitoring settings. So if we turn this toggle, and normally we don't during proof of concepts or evaluations, but in production, we always want to turn this on. Now, what can this do and what can this deliver? Again, as I just made mention a few moments ago, that if the routers are no longer sending data to us on the hourly, we can easily trigger email alerts to make you or a distribution list via email aware of such instance. So we can turn on all the days of the week if you needed to here, but maybe if you only want to key off of it, through the business week, that's completely up to you. Or you could even have run 1 day a week. That's completely fine. But you can set the monitor when to run. So in this example here, maybe I want this kind of monitor to kind of run Monday through Friday, the business week. Our default of minimum threshold for call volume would be 10. Certainly, if we need to bring that down to 1 or a single digit nature, we certainly can. But definitely, that'll be the minimum threshold for this monitor to run against. Now, whether or not we run this once a day, every day, business day of the week, or we run it 7 days of the week, or even regardless of days of the week, if we want to repeat it, maybe we want to start running at 8 a.m. and run for 10 hours straight consecutively throughout the business day, just to make sure that we haven't had any failures or lack of the routers delivering data to Verify. So certainly you can run it once, you can run it, plenty of options here, whether it's weekly, whether it's daily, whether you're running it hourly, definitely plenty of viable options here. Now you'll have a pick list. Those are of course my email addresses. You'll have a pick list here that is being referenced from the email recipients in the admin settings, which I want to show you again as well and make sure this is covered as well. But this is definitely what you'd want to set up, and I think there's probably a map behind the scenes. There I am. Here's the Mat at Verify. That's the one account I have built in here. I'll just go ahead and save this. So that at least will allow monitoring alerting to be notified to my email address. Now, okay, now that has been turned on, but let's check out a couple other admin functions real briefly as well. So let's go into the settings gear here. Let's go into the application settings underneath system. Now, chances are this is probably already turned on if you have Call Manager within your Verify instance as well. But at the top of this app settings page, or towards the top, is going to be a CDR processing settings section. Say that 3 times fast. But I want to make sure that you have this toggle turned on. So that way, again, we can deliver email alerts if there's processing failures, not just the Call Manager data, but also to the Cube CDR processings. This will be certainly governed here. If we didn't want to use the default alert recipient, which is provisioned at the very, very, very top. So this can certainly be the easy go-to. This can be an individual like myself, or it can be certainly a distribution list or a combination of the two. But certainly at least make sure that the processing error generation emails will be going out to at least somebody. If it's not the default recipient, it's at least some individual or a distro list once again. Now to confirm those email addresses, which we're going to slide to right now, which is probably the other 2 components maybe I should have started with first, are going to be underneath the notification and delivery. So first things first, so that we can deliver not only just reports, but also these email alerts if need be, let's go into the SMTP server settings and let's just confirm that this is defined. So regardless of whatever relay server that we have set up for you, whether it's in the Verify cloud, whether it's in the in an on-prem instance, to certainly make certain that you actually have connection and you can test the configuration. Green is good, red is bad. Okay, green is good so that we know that we have a successful relay server. So that's one component to check off, but then the email recipients. So that last page that I was in underneath the application settings and even going into that monitor alert underneath the Cube iOS CDR processings, those email recipients are harvested from here. So underneath the settings gear, once again, notification delivery, email recipients, or right next door to the SMTP stuff. Sure, we only see my individual here, but certainly we can add additional individuals as well as distribution lists as well. So that way these can be utilized down the line for those pick lists, either for report deliveries or for those monitoring email notifications or those processing failures to make you and your environment aware of such conditions. Okay. So just wanted to get that admin stuff out of the way. And now that we can go ahead and we can start playing with data. So now with the Cube iOS platform within Verify, we're not going to be using these three modules up top here. Essentially, it's just these first two, dashboard and widgets and call analytics reporting. So we're going to start out with the Aqua analytics reporting to start with. And what we can do in here is a lot of good stuff. So again, you may be familiar to these pages already. Let me zoom in for your eyes. Familiar to these pages because you may have been entertaining Call Manager within the Verify instance as well. So it's going to be the same look and feel, the same buttons, the same levers, just a different data set, just a little bit of different nomenclature on the Cisco platform. So what we can do is now we can certainly, in the analytics section, it will deposit us to the history section by default. Sure, we're going to get into the reports and the schedules and the config stuff. But from the history section, if you're pumping data now over to Verify from the routers, let's just take a look at the data. So we can certainly either use the default search filter or search criteria within Verify, which is going to be calling number. You can put something in here that's specific. It will default with the equals operator. You can certainly leverage any of the conditional operators that contains maybe a starts with. We do use single capital X's as single character wildcards. That paired with a conditional operator like a starts with pretty much is asking the database engine where this field is one character or greater, return results. So it's kind of a catch-all, if you will. But then we have another option as well if you wanted to use maybe a scenario type. So call scenario types is across all the platforms as well. If we want to hit that pick list, we could certainly pick on total calls. Both of these will give us the same exact results. They're going to be a catch-all, if you will. Now, we can certainly view any of the data that we need to. I do want to make mention here that we are defaulting on sequences for the Cube iOS data. We could certainly look at it in an event light, which we will in a second or two. But I did run a sample earlier just from some dummy data that I have in this lab. So I've got about 16,000 calls to entertain myself with. What we can do in here is easily vet the data. Now, correct, I'm looking at this very wide open for any and all calls that traverse the router that was deposited over to Verify. Now, also, I can pretty much accordion or expand all of these rows that are below in this results grid here, because every record coming from the Cube iOS is going to have two legs or two events, as we would call them. Now, each and every one of these kind of these accordions, if you will, is one call. So while but from the Cube's perspective, there's always going to be an answer record and an originate record. So there's always going to be at least one of both, if not more. So Verify is identifying this. We are collapsing these based off of IDs into a sequence, which we can see here. So we're not overinflating counts. Now, if I wanted to, I could certainly look at it at the event light, but it would be a very per record granularity. So it would be potentially maybe maximizing the results to intently. So as an example, I don't know who goes with who. I do know that these calls are tied together. There's the same phone number here. So these are related to one another. So chances are most of the time you're probably going to want to lean on the sequencing. I certainly do out in the field. So again, sequencing is probably the best way to go with this, but there's also going to be other things that we can see from this data. Now let me just leverage something that I'm going to want you to do, or I would advocate that you do ahead of, where is it? And I've lost my place in line. This is my lab. Okay, pardon me. So I'm just going to show you very briefly here what the Cube cluster layout is going to look like from a column perspective. Let me just, I think I've got data in this lab from last year. Pardon me one moment. And unfortunately, I think it's something along the lines of September. Let's just flex that out very briefly, just get some data. Okay, different labs, same options though. Okay, so out of the box, of course you did. Out of the, yeah, there's these shouldn't be here. Out of the box, Verify is only going to give you about 6 or 8 columns in this detail section. That's pretty much what I'm trying to get at here. So while we'll definitely have the main meat of the calls, if you will, so the setup time or date time origination, if you will, calling line ID, DNS, durations, disconnection text, and stuff like that, and the voice feature. Other options that can be added with the show hide columns, just like we would with any of the other platforms. So if you've done this for Call Manager previously, the same rules in Cube would apply. There's going to be additional columns and data points that you can certainly leverage, is what I'm trying to get at. So I've added a couple additional ones in here. Definitely on my other lab, the other tab, I'll show you in a moment. There's definitely a few more, but you can certainly click on the show hide column. So definitely first thing I do in any environment is vet the data. Vet after handling the admin tasks, I want to vet the data in the history section underneath analytics. Then I'm going to want to add on additional columns. Definitely remote media address and peer ID, also known as dial peer, are definitely going to be two advantageous columns that I think you should certainly add, in addition to the call origin. Now, I know some of you may be thinking right now, why are you seeing H323 labeling on here? Now, this is just old Cisco nomenclature that they had in place from their router CDR data set for quite some time. Verifies is following in tow with their nomenclature once again. But don't get me wrong, we can certainly relabel all this to strip out the acronym of H323 if that's unneeded to be seen visually. Okay. But on the left here is going to be the laundry list of other, column detail types that we can certainly add in here. So whether or not we want to key on, IP phone information, inbound, outbound trunks, do we need to identify, disconnection cause codes, which are pretty much being captured by the disconnect text. This is just a numeric cause code. I don't think you need to add in here, but if you want to, you most certainly could. But again, there's other viable columns in here that you can certainly utilize, identifying numbers before they were translated, etc. So there's plenty of options that we certainly have in here with redirections and feature data columns as well. So there's plenty of options there for you to get your fill, if you will, because definitely this history section is definitely meant to be a place to be able to kind of garner quick results, but also formulate reports for filters and even dashboard widgets. I personally use it myself to kind of identify any environment that I encounter. What does their data look like? What are some of the sticking points that I see? Are there some remote media addresses that I may need to key off of and build reports around or build dashboard widgets around? So there's definitely kind of that level of exposure, whether it's Call Manager data or Cube data or any of the platforms that we support. I pretty much address it in the same manner. So we can certainly bake out additional content from this section here. Yes, you can definitely run reports right from here, from this history section if you need to. You can save it for future use. And then if you run that with your updated filters per your history searching in the background, that will save that report template into the report section to be ran at a later time. Okay. So that's definitely one thing I would recommend taking advantage of. But also we have, like all of our platforms, we have templates. So we have templates that you can download from the verify.com website and load and import directly into the UI. These don't come with the application natively at this time, but it's a pretty quick, easy download and import from the website. So if you go to verify.com/support/download, get logged in, deal with CAPTCHA, then you'll have access to be able to go ahead and hit our download screen. If you needed a release version update, certainly those will be viable to be downloaded here, but also are the report templates for the corresponding platforms that we support. Now, there's one here for Cisco Cube. I did download this earlier, and these are going to be the 6 or 7, actually I think it's 7 or 8 templates that we certainly support with this template package. Now, there's going to be call summarization by peer IDs or those dial peers, inbound and outbound volume metrics based off the Cube's perspective, uh, capacity utilization off of those media addresses that we're seeing as well in the data, but also some abnormalcies. So if we're seeing disconnection codes or troubled calls, but also even just total capacity utilization for traffic at the router level of calls traversing, whether or not they're going to Call Manager or not, or to some of your other UC platforms remains to be seen. So we definitely have this good stock of templates here to be easily loaded and imported into Verify. Get back to that in a moment. Then you'll have the option to go ahead and leverage those reports. Now let me jump over to my other lab here. My other lab here, which I have a lot more columns turned on. I have those translations that I made mention. I definitely have the dial peers, the remote media addresses, and then there's other content that we can derive if needed. What's nice about these media addresses or these dial peers is that we can copy the values right here and pretty much stuff them into a report or use them in a report filter or even take it to the dashboard and build out corresponding reports that are going to leverage that content around those dial peers, around those media addresses, or around some other specific information that you're identifying from the data received. Okay. So now those templates that we loaded, let's see if I have them in here. So these are they. So pretty easy. There's an import option underneath the create report creation option. So there's a KB or a webinar, I'm sure, on how to import reports into the application. I'll save us from going through all of that. But again, here are these templates. We can certainly run these as they sit right now and actually see exactly what some results look like. You'll have, as always, format options, delivery options as well, and time period options. But also we can even employ a custom label set if we want to, again, strip out that kind of H323 nomenclature so that we're not seeing those on the column headers, or if we need to abbreviate anything for this data to make it a little more digestible for maybe a non-technical entity who may be reading this stuff. But definitely there's a decent range of data metrics that can be supplied from these 7 or 8 templates here. Again, if we're looking at disconnections or capacity utilization, those are going to be ideal. These templates definitely have kind of this master knowledge base page here on our verify.com website. So we can take a look and see what the samples of a report could look like. So we can drill into them if we need to hone in on the dial peers and see over a time frame, who is my peak dial peer, and what are the all the call traffic over that? What are the durations therein and the averages aplenty? If we need a graphical representation, I'm not sure if this one has it, but certainly we can bake those into these. So these templates are not the end all be all. Definitely any report template within Verify can certainly be modified and massaged for desired output content. So certainly do know that this page does exist. These templates do exist. You can see samples of these reports templates off of the sites by clicking the sample report option here. If we're looking for concurrency on these reports, we can just certainly see the peak concurrency, what the peak duration is, what the average concurrent call ratios look like, as well as the time period based concurrency of the call traffic, whether it's on one day or whether it's on a monthly time frame, by week or by date, as an example. So there's definitely plenty of viable options there. So definitely please feel free to go ahead and take advantage of those. But then also we can certainly build out whatever we need to. So once we're comfortable with reports here, we can run a couple sample reports, we can run some reports, but then you can certainly automate them. So as reports are sitting in this report bucket here, it's up to you, or in conjunction with working with Verify support, where we can kind of customize these as well to the best output for the environment that is desired. Then once we kind of have those templates kind of standardized, a nice little pretty name label on them, then we just slide right next door to the schedules option and go ahead and put automated frequency schedules on them. Now we'll have the option to go ahead and from the drop-down list here, pick on any one of those templates or that updated polished report name, and then go ahead and build out its frequency. So whether that's an hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, biannual, or just an annual basis report, certainly we can cover all of those options for deliverables. So please do know that is there, but you definitely have plenty of advantage to go ahead and use the history and the ad hoc section here to garner any quick reports that you need to have in your hands at a moment's notice. Okay. Now, having that and leveraging all that, there's definitely options to then, as I made mention, to play around with custom label sets. So if we want to take out all the H323 stuff underneath analytics, the call analytics reporting module, we would slide in the configure option. There's going to be custom label sets. Someone looks like Victor built that before, but I could add a brand new data set and call it, I don't know, Matt's Cube labels as an example. I can't even spell. But what we can do then is we can certainly change up the nomenclature. So as an example here, H323s, we see that all over the place. Maybe not all over the place. H323, we have dynamic keyword searches built into every dropdown we have. Here's the origin. So maybe if I just want to say call direction as opposed to H323 call origin, certainly a viable option that we can go ahead and do so. So there's plenty of options to go ahead and relabel things with brevity or ease of use in mind, to kind of take out, again, that out of the box default Cisco nomenclature. And then from there, once we have that, I'll entertain this one here since I don't feel like building a new one. Once we have a custom label set, then you can actually even call upon it for your report runs or your dashboard widgets as well. So that label set in a report is this right here. So system default, again, is that's out of the box Cisco nomenclature, but Victor's dial peer label said I could use that if that was the one I wanted to use, but definitely that is where you would certainly harness that label replacing, if you will. Okay. So now we have that. You can run history searches, you can run your ad hocs, your schedules, custom labels. Then I would recommend probably sliding to the dashboard. So let me zoom out here. So now once we kind of have this data, we've kind of vetted a little bit in the history section, you're comfortable with seeing some things, then we can kind of come to the dashboard. And when it comes to the dashboard perspective, or even if the reporting, the structured reporting for Cube for that matter, the way I address it myself personally is to give volume exposure, if you will, at the cube level. Now, there's definitely calls that are coming to and from the call managers that are being serviced and routed through the cube, but there's also going to be other platforms that are not call manager that you want to be aware of, that these data volumes will capture that the call manager capacity utilization is not, again, because these are calls that are being routed to a different platform that are not going to call manager or coming from call manager. So there's definitely always that volume or capacity utilization at the router level that I always showcase for whatever time frame that it needs to be. This example is this current and previous week. We can see very high level that the sample lab data, my high water mark was on July 6th during the 11 a.m. hour. There were 17 concurrent calls that were happening at the exact same time. So 17 channels being used on the router, on the voice gateway, just for managerial review, if you will. Maybe there is a stop limit or a ceiling. Maybe there's only 100 concurrent channels that were procured from the provider at the same time. Maybe we're teetering close to that. Maybe we're in the low 90s as an example, or maybe there's just barren usage, if you will. So definitely gives that level of exposure, but also calls to other platforms. So inbound calls to the router, outbound calls from the router, but also what's abnormally happening on the router. What are some pitfalls that you may be unaware of? So that's definitely one thing I always kind of build around: totals, volumes, capacity, and then the flip side of the coin, some abnormalities or pitfalls, if you will. Are there some abnormal disconnection cause codes that we actually see on the raw data that we want to make you aware of, or that you need to be made aware of? As an example here, I'm built out a grouping summary widget right here. I'm grouping it based off of the disconnection cause code for the current previous week, and looks like the network out of order and temporary failure are at the top of this leaderboard sort here. I would think that would kind of jump off the page and probably want to know why that's happening. So we can actually kind of chase this down the rabbit hole a little bit. We can see, I mean, we can do this at a very granular level in the history section as well, but nice to be able to have this exposure in the Verify dashboard. So for the same search filter here for the same time frame, I want to look at these network out of order errors, or maybe even the temporary failures, or maybe the top couple that are at the top of this kind of leaderboard table here. Now, network out of order kind of did jump off the table at me, so I replicated the same time frame, but I want to see when it's happening. So over this week and a half time frame, what hours of day is this happening? Okay, there's 325 of these that happen at 4 in the morning, or a couple hundred that happened just after the start of business. Is something rogue happening on that router that we're unaware of? And then secondarily, for those 1071 calls, let's also then maybe group it by the media addresses, these remote media addresses that are part of these calls that have these network out of orders. So this 1071, what media addresses are having these failures? Pretty easy to build these out, but then also secondarily, what are the dial peers that are responsible for these as well? So is there an issue with one of these dial peers that one of the administrators needs to put in the service ticket with the vendor to take a look at this and see exactly what failures are happening off of these dial peers, because we can certainly see that calls are failing with relative ease and frequency here within the environment. Now, just to kind of walk us through for the benefit of the recording, I do know I'm running a little late here, but just as an example, how I would identify this, and this is also stuff that we can do from the structured reports as well. So now in the search sets, or lack of a better term, filters within Verify, we could either build out a private search. Let me zoom in. We can build out a private search set like this and key off of the normal disconnection codes and flipping the kind of the logic on them to exclude them from the list, because there's definitely a healthy list of abnormalities, and network out of order certainly being one of them in this drop list here. Or you could actually even utilize and leverage one of our reports. Now, this right here, this top 10 disconnection codes, is actually kind of built around the same exact logic that I have already built out in this widget here. So you can certainly build it from the ground up or leverage one of those existing templates. That's going to give us, again, the laundry list here of the abnormal termination codes that we're seeing. Then maybe how do we want to build that as a a widget for a time period based for breakdowns by date or hour of day as an example. I was hoping this wouldn't happen. But essentially what this is going to offer us is going to be the option to go ahead and create a line graph, which is a call volume by time period widget. And I'm simply just going to key off of the network out of order error. So call volume by time period, I'm breaking it down by hour of day. The search center filters, I'm keying specifically on the disconnection cause code of network out of order. And that's how I'm able to garner the timeframes for these to be sliced by hour of day. Same rules apply for these two over here on the far right. These are just grouping widgets made off of copies from that previous widget. So it's just a grouping statistic type. I am grouping it by the remote media address or the one underneath, which is by the dial peer. And that is going to give me the leverage off of the network out of order to garner which dial peers or which remote media addresses were involved in these network out of orders. There's definitely plenty of exposure to that. The verify reports, the templates certainly help cater that. We can certainly assist from the support level to assist with building all of this stuff out, but also even identifying those network out of order errors. If we need to see them in their very granular detail, we can certainly build those out, identify all these, these zero duration guys, these temporary failures, the network out of orders pretty easily in their sequencing. So we can build those out pretty easily in kind of a dynamic widget there, but definitely more room for build out, definitely. Now, I do know I've been rambling away a little much longer than I thought I was. I do apologize for that. I do want to wrap with just saying we definitely have webinars on this content. So whether or not you want to hit the verify.com/company/webinars page, we definitely have plenty of videos. So we definitely have Cube webinars, how to isolate calls, why does your organization need this, how to build this, how to build that for the Cube deployments. So we definitely have all of that, not to undersell our support department, which is second to none. Jim, I think I've talked enough.
Yes, you have. And now you just proved why we call you Mr. Dashboard, too. Very nice. Great presentation, Matt.
Thank you.
And thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Our next session will be July 17th, when Brian and Mike will answer that age-old question: my counts don't add up. What gives? Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.